Give me the cash.
Been here long?
Yeah, long enough. Come on, give me the cash.
Is that a Z-140?
Yeah.
That's a very dangerous gun.
In the summer of 1997, between the releases of The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and Men in Black, audiences worldwide were introduced to a different kind of science fiction film. The Fifth Element crashed into theaters like a flying taxi in neon-lit New York, bringing with it a vision of the future unlike anything Hollywood had produced before. This wasn't the gritty dystopia of Blade Runner or the sanitized future of Star Trek. Instead, director Luc Besson delivered a maximalist space opera that felt more like a European comic book exploded onto the screen. With a budget of $90 million, at the time the most expensive European film ever made, Besson created a universe where ancient Egyptian mysticism met flying Chinese food boats, and where the fate of the universe rested in the hands of a taxi driver and a genetically perfect being who spoke in colors. The film's release timing was perfect and precarious. The late 90s marked a transition period in Hollywood sci-fi. Practical effects were reaching their peak, while CGI was still finding its footing. Audiences were hungry for fresh visions of the future, having grown weary of the cyberpunk aesthetics that dominated the previous decade. The Fifth Element arrived as a burst of orange-haired optimism in a genre that had become perhaps too serious for its own good. Initial reactions were as divided as they were passionate. American critics seemed unsure what to make of this French-flavored space opera. Roger Ebert praised its visual imagination, but questioned its narrative coherence. Audiences, however, turned the film into a surprise hit. Against expectations, it grossed over $263 million worldwide, proving that there was indeed an appetite for science fiction that dared to be different. But box office numbers and critical responses only tell part of the story. To understand why The Fifth Element has not just endured, but grown in estimation over the past 25 years, we need to look deeper at its revolutionary approach to science fiction filmmaking, its unforgettable performances, and most importantly, how it helped reshape our expectations of what a summer blockbuster could be. First, let's dive into the technical achievements that made this neon-drenched future possible. The Fifth Element's visual style remains its most immediately striking feature. Besson spent nearly a decade developing the film's aesthetic, beginning in 1991 when he penned the first draft at age 16. He collaborated with French comic artists Jean Mobius, Giraud, and Jean-Claude Mézières, spending months creating over 8,000 storyboards to design a future that broke free from the standard cyberpunk template. The production team built 6 miles of neon tube lighting and constructed over 350 individual set pieces. Instead of dark and gritty streets, they created vertical cities bathed in golden light, where flying cars moved in orderly layers like schools of fish in a vast urban ocean. The film's production design, helmed by Dan Weil, merged retro-futuristic elements with haute couture sensibilities. The team constructed massive sets at Pinewood Studios, including a full-scale replica of Fhloston Paradise's theater that took 3 months to build. Every surface in Corbin Dallas's apartment served multiple functions: a bed that folded into a wall, a shower that doubled as a refrigerator. These weren't just clever gimmicks. They reflected a lived-in future where space came at a premium and innovation arose from necessity. The iconic police chase sequence required building a 20-foot deep tank to shoot underwater scenes that would later be digitally transformed into aerial footage. Digital effects in 1997 were still in their adolescence, yet The Fifth Element pushed boundaries by seamlessly blending practical and computer-generated imagery. The film used over 200 digital effect shots, a significant number for its time, but never relied on them as a crutch. The iconic flying car sequences combined miniature work with digital enhancement, while the bustling cityscape was achieved through a combination of practical sets and digital extensions. The film's most impressive technical achievement might be its approach to world building through costume design. Jean-Paul Gaultier created over 1,000 unique costumes, each telling its own story about the future. From the McDonald's workers' rubber uniforms to Lilu's iconic thermal bandages, every piece of clothing served both a narrative and visual purpose. Ruby Rod's leopard print bodysuit wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a commentary on the evolution of celebrity culture. Cinematographer Thierry Arbogast brought this vibrant world to life with a lighting scheme that broke conventional sci-fi rules. Instead of the usual blue-tinted future, Arbogast bathed scenes in warm oranges and yellows, creating a sense of artificial sunshine that penetrated even the deepest levels of the city. The camera moved with unprecedented fluidity, matching the frenetic energy of the flying vehicles while remaining grounded during intimate moments. What truly set The Fifth Element apart was its commitment to practical effects wherever possible. The Mangalore aliens were primarily achieved through prosthetic makeup, while Zorg's office combined physical sets with subtle digital enhancements. This grounding in reality gave the film's more fantastical elements a tangible quality that purely digital effects of the era couldn't match. The Fifth Element's success hinges as much on its performances as its visual spectacle. Bruce Willis brought his signature everyman charm to Corbin Dallas, but with a crucial difference from his other action roles. This wasn't the indestructible hero of Die Hard. Dallas was a burned-out veteran turned cab driver whose initial reluctance to play hero felt genuine rather than performative. Willis actually took a pay cut to star in the film, believing in Besson's vision. He spent weeks training with French cab drivers to perfect his handling of the flying taxi sequences. But it was Milla Jovovich who delivered the film's standout performance as Lilu, creating a character who's simultaneously ancient, newborn, and superhuman could have easily descended into caricature. Instead, Jovovich crafted a performance built on micro-expressions and body language. She spent months developing the divine language with Besson, creating over 400 unique words and consistent grammatical rules. Watch how she maintains consistent speech patterns throughout the film. This wasn't just line delivery, it was full linguistic immersion. Jovovich trained for months with acting coach Lucy Bernardoni, particularly focusing on conveying complex emotions without dialogue. The scene where Lilu discovers human warfare through computer research required Jovovich to cycle through dozens of emotional states in just minutes. A scene that took 2 days to film and required no dialogue. Gary Oldman's Zorg represents a masterclass in controlled scenery chewing. His performance deliberately echoes the corporate villains of RoboCop and Blade Runner, but with an added layer of philosophical complexity. Oldman based Zorg's distinctive accent on a blend of American Southern drawl and Ross Perot's speech patterns. The scene where he explains his theory of destruction while cleaning his desk belongs in any acting textbook. It's a perfect example of how to deliver exposition while revealing character. Oldman improvised several of Zorg's mannerisms, including the nervous tick with his plastic head covering and the way he meticulously arranges objects on his desk. Chris Tucker's Ruby Rod initially divided audiences, but his performance perfectly encapsulated the film's fearless approach to genre conventions. His high-energy portrayal pushed boundaries of gender expression in mainstream science fiction, creating a character that felt both outrageous and completely believable within the film's universe. Tucker spent 3 months working with a vocal coach to develop Rod's distinctive speaking style, which had to work across multiple registers while remaining consistent. The sequence where he maintains his broadcast persona while privately panicking during a firefight showcases remarkable comic timing and character depth, a scene that required 13 takes to perfect. The supporting cast brought crucial depth to this strange new world. Ian Holmes' priest Cornelius carried the weight of ancient prophecies without becoming ponderous. Brian James and Luke Perry delivered memorable performances in brief but crucial roles. Even the background actors maintained consistent characterization, creating a sense of a fully populated universe rather than just a collection of extras. Perhaps the most challenging performances came from those actors working under heavy prosthetics. The Mangalores, particularly Tricky's right arm character, had to convey alien nature while maintaining emotional resonance. Their physicality had to suggest both otherworldly origin and military training, a balance that required extensive preparation and precise execution. Unlike many sci-fi blockbusters of its era, The Fifth Element arrived in theaters as Besson intended, without studio-mandated cuts or alternate versions. The film's theatrical release ran 126 minutes, and this remains the definitive version. While rumors of a longer cut containing additional scenes of Zorg's backstory and a 15-minute sequence showing Lilu's creation have circulated for years, Besson has consistently maintained that the theatrical version best serves the story. The director's cut, rumored to exist in France, is actually identical to the international release, with only minor audio mixing differences. The film's initial reception reflected the cultural divide between European and American approaches to science fiction. French critics celebrated its audacious vision, with Le Monde praising it as cinéma de look taken to its spectacular extreme. Cahiers du Cinéma called it a turning point in science fiction cinema. American reviews were more divided, with the New York Times dismissing it as an exercise in style, while Entertainment Weekly praised its masterful blend of visual excess and emotional simplicity. The film earned a 71% rating on Rotten Tomatoes at release, a number that has steadily climbed to 82% over the years. But something fascinating happened as the years passed. The Fifth Element found its true audience through home video and cable television, selling over 6 million VHS copies worldwide by 1999. Repeated viewings revealed layers of detail initially missed in the theatrical experience. Fans began noticing the intricate world-building hidden in background details, the evolution of corporate logos, the multi-language signage, the consistent future fashion trends across all social classes. The film became a staple of TNT and TBS's weekend programming, where its episodic structure and vibrant visuals proved perfect for repeat viewing. Hidden details emerged with each new video format. The shift to DVD in 1997 included the first widescreen transfer, revealing previously cropped details in the elaborate set design. The 2005 Blu-ray release showcased the astounding level of detail in the production design that even theatrical prints hadn't fully captured. The pattern on Zorg's desk wasn't random. It incorporated Egyptian hieroglyphs that spelled out part of the prophecy. The divine language wasn't gibberish, but a constructed language with over 400 words and consistent rules. Even the background advertisements told stories about this future society's values and concerns, including a recurring motif about water conservation and population control. Test screenings had initially worried studio executives at Columbia Pictures. Preview audiences in early 1997 were confused by the mix of comedy and action, the abrupt tone shifts, and the decidedly European approach to pacing. The studio suggested adding a voiceover narration and cutting several of Ruby Rod's scenes, both of which Besson successfully fought against. But these very elements that confused test audiences became the aspects most celebrated by fans. The film's refusal to explain every detail of its universe, its trust in viewers to keep up with its rapid-fire cultural references, and its fearless mixing of genres all contributed to its growing reputation as a cult classic. Critical reappraisals began appearing around the film's 10th anniversary. Scholars and critics started examining its prescient themes: environmental collapse, corporate overreach, the commodification of spirituality. What had initially been dismissed as style over substance was increasingly recognized as a sophisticated commentary on humanity's relationship with technology and faith. 25 years after its release, The Fifth Element's influence reverberates through modern science fiction. Its DNA can be seen in films like Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, another Besson project, Jupiter Ascending, and even aspects of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Its approach to world building, suggesting rather than explaining, showing rather than telling, has become a template for modern sci-fi worldcraft. The film's visual aesthetic has proven remarkably influential in unexpected ways. Its vision of vertical urban sprawl predicted the actual development of cities like Shanghai and Dubai. The multifunction living spaces of Corbin's apartment anticipated the real-world trend toward micro-apartments and convertible furniture. Even its projection of future fashion has proven surprisingly accurate. The revival of 90s fashion has made some of Gautier's designs look less like costume and more like prophecy. Beyond its surface influence, The Fifth Element's greatest legacy might be its demonstration that big-budget science fiction could take risks. It proved that audiences would accept complex world-building without extensive exposition. That action could coexist with philosophical themes, and that style could be substance. The success of films like Cloud Atlas, Arrival, and Everything Everywhere All at Once owes something to the path The Fifth Element helped forge. The film's themes have only grown more relevant with time. Its depiction of corporate power overshadowing governmental authority feels less like science fiction and more like documentary. The central conflict between materialism and spirituality resonates even more strongly in our increasingly polarized world. Even its optimistic message, that love and human connection ultimately triumph over destruction, offers a welcome counterpoint to contemporary sci-fi's often bleak outlook. From a modern perspective, The Fifth Element stands as a bridge between different eras of science fiction filmmaking. It marks the end of an age where practical effects dominated and the beginning of CGI's ascendancy, yet it demonstrates how both approaches can serve storytelling rather than overshadow it. Its influence can be seen not just in other films, but in video games, fashion, architecture, and graphic design. Perhaps most importantly, The Fifth Element reminds us that science fiction can be both serious and joyful, both spectacular and intimate, both wildly imaginative and deeply human. In an era where franchise filmmaking often plays it safe, its fearless originality and uncompromising vision shine brighter than ever. It remains, like its central character Lilu, perfect in its imperfections, a supreme example of cinema as both art and entertainment.